Hello and welcome to another session of Over the Counter from Prescription. Just about 40 to 50 years ago, the major public health problem that confronted the whole world was essentially malnutrition and infections. In the space of a few decades, it seems like the whole thing has been turned on its head, and today, obesity, excess weight, is the largest single public health problem facing the world, whether you're in a rich country or a poor country. Obesity has traditionally been the responsibility of the person who is overweight. Certain conventional treatments have been prescribed for many, many decades now. However, in recent years, a whole new range of drugs have been introduced that seriously question this age-old wisdom. Recently, I came across an article in The Atlantic which looks at the problem in great depth and raises a challenging question as to whether diet and exercise may no longer be the cornerstone of obesity management. For years and years, we always told patients, hey, listen, if you want to lose weight, it's up to you. And diet and exercise were the prevailing belief and the prevailing recommendation for anybody who was carrying a little more weight than they needed to. But if you closely look at the evidence regarding dieting and weight loss, some rather interesting or maybe even depressing factors arise. And evidence shows that if you take a group of people who have successfully lost weight with whatever regimen, it doesn't really matter at all which one of those hundreds of thousands of regimens that are now available, it doesn't matter at all, but around 2 years' time, 70%, almost 3/4 of them would regain half the weight that they have lost. And you wait a little longer, around 3 to 5 years, most of them would have come back to the original weight that they started with. And now this is depressing. And this has been the reason, again, why there has been so much concern about finding new alternatives for the management of obesity. An interesting behavior also arises, and that is these recurrent cycles of weight loss and weight regain, what's referred to as yo-yo dieting, much like the little toy that children play with. And this constant bouncing back and forth from a high weight, lose some weight, and then come back actually increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases like heart attacks and strokes and so on, the very thing that you're trying to prevent by recommending that people lose weight. So this has been around for a while. This is really not even new information, but this has been a cause for concern that we have never really addressed head on until the introduction a few years ago of a class of drugs that go by the name of GLP-1 for short. If you really want the entire expansion, it's glucagon-like peptides. Let's not get into how they work or the chemistry and the biology of all of that. But the fact remains that drugs like Ozempic, and Ozempic is by and large the poster child of this whole group of drugs. It's much like Coke and soft drinks. Drugs like Ozempic were initially introduced some years ago to regulate type 2 diabetes, that is the common kind of diabetes that we find that's associated with aging and overweight. But along with the blood sugar control, something interesting also emerged, and that was that these patients lost weight very easily without even really trying. It seemed like just putting them on the drug and telling them to continue whatever they were doing really brought about some effective changes in their weight. When this news hit the marketplace, or at least the media, the horse bolted. Everybody and their brother now wanted to lose weight on this miracle injection that you take once a week, and hey presto, you're back. And I think people like Oprah were some of the first ones who went public by showing how they melted away. And once that cat was out of the bag, I think the entire focus shifted away from blood sugar management and diabetes to weight loss. Several studies have also shown that if you combine these drugs with the classical lifestyle intervention, that is, control your diet a little, exercise a little, they found that this group of people actually doubled the amount of weight loss. And the interesting thing is that This drug also in a very subtle way suppresses appetite. These people don't need to eat or feel like eating as much. And there's an interesting sidelight in the fact that some studies have shown that when you look at the grocery bills of these patients who have been on these drugs for a while, it comes down. It's not good news for the food industry, but it does happen. The question then arises, is this traditional recommendation of dieting and exercise any longer valid? Has their role shifted? Has the role of lifestyle drugs shifted towards that of preventing muscle loss? That's in other words, strengthening your muscles, and bone loss that is so essential as you grow older. And also other strategies that we do to improve the quality of life. So seriously, we now have to re-examine the issue and ask ourselves the question, is it time to look again at the traditional lifestyle interventions as foundational treatments for obesity in the age of GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic? The medical profession has still not come to grips with it. Many doctors are themselves quite confused about what this medication is what it can do. But there are several concerns that I feel are valid and should be addressed as far as this new miracle drug is involved. And that is, one, you've fundamentally shifted the responsibility from the patient to the medical profession. Up until now, either patients did it by themselves or nothing would change. Now the whole thing has been moved from a personal challenge to a medical disorder, and the responsibility has also been shifted from the patient to the medical profession, what we call medicalization, and the medical profession just loves it. This is a concern. Secondly, these drugs are exorbitantly expensive. There are several in the market, several more are being introduced with each passing year, but the cost doesn't seem to come down. Big Pharma, as we all know, will really squeeze us, will really squeeze the life out of us, and at the present time, the costs are a huge concern, but despite that, the demand for this drug far exceeds supply. We're talking about 1 in 8 human beings in the world, about 1 billion people who could be potential customers, and Big Pharma is just drooling at that prospect. Then what do we do with resource-poor societies? Obesity is no longer just the problem of the rich. We know for a fact that due to the rather unconscionable and unethical marketing of what we call empty calories in food, obesity has become a very, very major problem in poor and developing countries. How can these societies afford the cost of this treatment when they also desperately need some kind of a solution? So that's another major issue. And the last issue that I think has to be addressed and is of real concern is the long-term outcomes. At the present time, everybody is caught up in the euphoria of the fact that this drug also does a lot of secondary, very wonderful things. It seems like it could have an impact on dementia. It might also protect you from certain kinds of cancer. It seems to protect you in a good way against cardiovascular disease. It seems like all the pluses are adding up. They as yet don't seem to be too many minuses, but we don't know. The drug has not been around for long enough. And remember, once somebody starts taking this, they have to take it for life. If you stop it, the weight will come right back, and you'll be back in this yo-yo phenomenon. So there are a lot of unanswered questions about what happens when you take this drug on a long term. Thank you very much for staying with me on this presentation. If you liked it, please share it with other people. You could repost it. You could subscribe to my newsletter and make sure you don't miss out on any of the issues. You can find the archives and back issues and much more at my website that's located at prescription.com. There is a hyphen between the P and the R. Thank you very much for listening and for watching. Thank you.